Welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network, the Postgame Pod here. Nathan King joined by Jason Caldwell. Auburn basketball, a winner on the road in a nice bounce-back spot for the Tigers Tuesday night in Nashville, Tennessee against Vanderbilt, 80-68. Vanderbilt now joins that group of quality SEC teams like most of the league is this year, to the point where this is a quad one game. This, in recent history, hasn't always been the case for Auburn, but they do pick up their 13th quad one win tonight. They were already at 13, then they knocked back down, then they went back up. They're going to keep fluctuating around this spot. But Jason, we'll get into the nitty gritty of how they did it. But the most important thing, I think, tonight was Auburn came out really sharp. They took it on the chin for a little while. And ultimately, I just think, and Bruce Pearl said it after the game, he said they didn't look ahead one bit. He didn't say a word about Saturday against Alabama. There were some moments in this game that left you some concern, but ultimately a very, very good bounce back performance after a tough loss on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought it was a tale of, I won't say two different halves. It was almost a tale of two different teams. Auburn goes up 15-0, and it almost like oh man, well, we've done what we needed to do. Let's relax a little bit. And you felt like Vandy kind of chipped away a little bit, and then Auburn never was able to get the momentum back. And in the second half, they come out and Chaney Johnson was the difference in the game. Denver Jones kind of got them started, but Chaney Johnson put the hammer down on Vandy to start the second half. And I thought gave Auburn a chance to breathe a little bit because Vandy had the momentum. They were running a little bit, and Chaney just kept getting bucket after bucket. And I thought it was a little deflating for – you look at one time at Vandy's 55% from the floor in the second half, and Auburn had built a 10-point lead because Auburn was like 78%. Much of that Chaney Johnson. To survive a gut punch, losing a 15-0 lead, and to come back and really squash Vandy at the end of the game, I thought that was maybe one of the more impressive wins of the season for me, considering what Chad Baker-Mazara looked like and Janai Broome ends up with 17, but that's still not the Janai Broome that we've seen this season.
Yeah, so Chad Baker-Mazara, like you mentioned. So Chad Baker-Mazara does not start tonight. That was something that did not come as a surprise after practice this week. You were the one who first brought it up after the game against Florida on Saturday. You were like, he only played 19 minutes. Now, he left the floor a couple times.
Yeah.
But still just – and sure enough, on Monday, Bruce Pearl says he's taken a lot of falls. He's really banged up. And then Bruce said, when you're 175 pounds in this league, like it's going to get to you eventually. He didn't end up playing that much of a minutes restriction, really. I mean, he played 29 minutes in this game, but his offensive game was off, but did have 4 assists. Bruce Pearl really, commented on his defense. Yeah, it was Chaney Johnson for Auburn in the second half. In the first half, it was Denver Jones. 3 3-pointers for him. After the game, Denver Jones said he had a conversation with Stephen Pearl on Monday, and Stephen Pearl told him, "Look, we know you're the point guard, but you are a scorer at heart." And Correct. He did not make a field goal against Florida, and I think they thought he was being a little bit too passive in that game. And they said, just go out there and score. This is a guy who averaged 20 a game at FIU in that season before coming to Auburn. He was hunting for a shot. He was taking open looks. Ends up scoring 21 points in this game. That ties his most in an Auburn uniform.
Yeah, I thought Denver was really good. You're right. I thought that was more of the shooting Denver Jones that we've seen, and you can still do that and be a point guard. I thought there was a nice mix. Miles Kelly makes a shot early, but still, didn't find the rhythm. I thought, along with what we saw from Denver, I thought Tahad Pettiford was more in control than he's been in quite a while tonight. It had a couple of long looks early, but he had 3 assists. But I thought he managed the game in a tough environment. I thought the combination that we got, from Denver, we saw from Denver and Tahad tonight was really important for this team because they were able to kind of control the floor against a Vandy team that can be pretty erratic. I mean, they're kind of all over the place, and Auburn kind of held it in there after that tough run in the middle of the game.
Yeah, Pettiford. So Auburn makes 11 of their first 13 shots in the second half. They shoot 62% from the floor overall in the second half. Part of that run, Chaney Johnson spurred it. Had a 9-0 run all by himself. Then Mark Byington calls timeout. Immediately after that, if I'm not mistaken, Tahad Pettiford gets a 4-point play. And so that kind of felt like the turning point. From then on, I think they just kind of calmed down. They calmed down on defense, used their length, used a little bit better physicality. The foul differential went more in their favor in the second half. Talking about Chad Baker-Mazara not being in the starting lineup, Chris Moore continues to he's not going to score a bunch, but he's going to give you plays when you need him. He scores a putback basket on the very first play of the game, scores right out of halftime to give them a nice little boost. So he gets 4 points in this game. Yeah, Todd Pettiford, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, only 1 turnover in this game. And then, like you mentioned, Janai Broome, 15 of his 17 points come there in the second half. You and I were talking about it before we got rolling. I wonder, Chaney Johnson, 20 points on 9 of 10 shooting. I wonder how many guys in Auburn history have scored 20 points plus points while shooting 90% from the floor. I mean, that's got to be a pretty rare statistic.
It does, and it was a little bit different game tonight from Chaney. I mean, obviously a couple of knockdowns, but he had a couple of tough turnarounds. And I we talked about this today. I thought it was a major advantage for Auburn from a size perspective, but Vandy is really physical. I mean, they were a physical team. I thought McLaughlin was Chester McLaughlin for a while, playing football instead of a basketball player. And that's the one thing you look and go, all the things tonight for me, it was the way that Vandy was able to rebound the ball against Auburn was probably the more maybe surprising thing of the night for me. And they've done that. They out-rebounded Kentucky, they out-rebounded Tennessee, and they out-rebounded Auburn. And so it shows you that size is just one part of rebounding. They got some guys that go get the basketball. They did that tonight.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it was, you and I were texting during the game. Like, it's just Auburn was not prepared for the guys to fly in for Vanderbilt that quickly, for them to fly in that physically. There was a point 5 or so minutes into the second half where Vanderbilt had either made every shot in the second half or they had offensive rebounded every single miss. They end up with 16 offensive rebounds in this game. So Auburn loses on the boards in this one overall. They finish -8 on the glass. Something like you mentioned, in a nice win, in a win with a lot of compliments. That's something you've definitely got to look at. Bruce Pearl said after the game, something he is continuing to focus on. He said, look, and I'm going to try to find the quote here. He said defense has to be a massive key for this team moving forward. He said, quote, if we're going to continue to win, our defense is going to have to carry us and lead the way. I think we got away from that. I'm going to do the best job I can to get us back to that. I mean, Florida was phenomenal. That's the best I've seen a team play offensively against a good Auburn team ever in Neville Arena. Now, there's been some bad Auburn teams, but they came in there and just played incredibly on Saturday. But there were some elements that you really just didn't like from Auburn's defense. There were parts of that in tonight's game. At the end of the day, though, you hold somebody under 70 on their floor in the SEC. That is very good defense. And Jason, going to Alabama on Saturday, that's got to be – I mean, look, you're going to have to make shots to beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa, but defensively, you cannot just let them play their game. And Bruce Pearl acknowledged that afterwards, saying, hey, that is the number one focus for this team right now.
Yeah, and you played a Vandy team that I think they wound up – I can't remember. Let's see what they were from 3 of 17. And one of those was a desperation 3 at the end of the first half. The other one was a 3, the first possession by McLaughlin, who you don't expect. So you look at it, and other than those 2, they only made 1 the rest of the game. That will not be the case Saturday. Alabama's going to make more than that. Can you limit it? And it's a big part of that is going to be offensive rebounds. Alabama does a great job of offensive rebounding long shots too. And I think Auburn has to be really wary of that. So I would expect them to put a big emphasis. Obviously, you're looking – I think, too, Auburn's defense has really suffered because Janai Broome is not the guy. Now, he still plays good defense, but he's not a guy – you look at the block shots. The block shots have plummeted, with Janai Broome's injury. Dylan Caldwell didn't play as many minutes tonight, so you take him out of the equation. And Broome's a guy – he'll still get some, but he's not a guy that has the lift that he's had. And so Auburn's been able to funnel guys to the basket before. Vanderbilt got a lot of layups tonight. I mean, they were able to do some of those things around the rim that Auburn hasn't been giving up in the past. And so because of that, you're going to have to be really wary of, Mark Sears will drive to the basket. He'll draw a bunch of fouls. But, hey, tonight you get out of a place where, hey, Auburn basketball has not won a bunch ever in Memorial. And so to do it when all the things we're talking about, how you could have done this, you still wound up winning by 12 against a team that only had lost one game at home this season. That's still a pretty good night.
Yeah, they said on the broadcast that yesterday, so being Monday, Janai Broom told the SEC Network crew that was his best day of practice that he felt like ever since coming back from that ankle injury. So, and Bruce Pearl admitted it this week. I mean, it's kind of been the elephant in the room is that it's just there's not enough time for him to sit out and get 100%.
Correct.
At the same time, Janai Broom refuses. Like, he wouldn't have done that anyway. I mean, he came back as fast as he could, as fast as medically safe to do so. And they understand. And I mean, an 80% Janai Broom is better than 90% of the big men in the country. And so Auburn obviously knows that. Janai Broom obviously knows that. Jason, real quick, and then we'll close out here on the postgame show. I mean, Auburn checks this box off and does a good job of avoiding the look-ahead spot. Saturday it's just everything. It's everything you could want in a regular season basketball game. Number 1 versus number 2, first time in SEC history. We will get into everything having to do with that game this week, but I feel like we talk about it all the time, and I'm kind of tired of it because these two programs have been great for several seasons.
Correct.
But I will allow it here because of the significance. I mean, just how unbelievable is it in hindsight, zooming out, that Auburn and Alabama basketball have reached this spot together?
Yeah. I mean, somebody who grew up in this state and now in my early 50s, grew up watching, I watch a lot of college basketball, always have, obviously football, but I've been a huge college basketball fan my entire life. And other than pockets, I mean, Auburn had, you had your run at 85 and 86, 87, 88, where you went to NCAA tournaments, and then you had 99. But very little success. Alabama's had more basketball success than Auburn has. Alabama historically has been the second best program behind Kentucky in this league, and obviously you had Arkansas in as other schools. But I mean, they had not made a run to a Final Four, heck, not even an Elite Eight, or one time. And so to do this together and to push each other, that's been the thing. They have pushed each other back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now you look and they both made a Final Four in the last 4 years. This will be the 5th year. Now both ranked 1 in a poll. It's incredible. It really is incredible to see. And it's going to be a crazy stage and set the stage for potentially what's to come the rest of this season. Obviously, still a lot of tough basketball games left for both of these teams between now and then. But Tennessee loses on the road to Kentucky. That's the 4th loss for them in this league. Florida, holding at 3, has they may have the most favorable schedule of anybody left. Them in Texas A&M. A&M, playing Georgia on Tuesday night. So still a lot left, but this is the first meeting of what at least is going to be 2 really important meetings between these 2 rivals this year.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of, Alabama and Auburn, control their own respective destinies here.
Correct.
Top of the league, and they're going to meet 2 times, so they're going to be able to determine who ends up winning the league or ends up winning a share of the league. Obviously, there, like you said, lots of other basketball to be played. 2 of the best offenses in the country. I mean, it's going to be.
You're right. Because of that, defense, rebounding, all those things are going to be vitally important. Free throw shooting, and Auburn wasn't great again tonight from the free throw line, a little bit better in the second half. Those things become really valuable, especially going on the road to a place where you face a team that can get hot and score points in a hurry.
It's going to be cinematic, I think, on Saturday afternoon, and then they get to do it again on the last day of the regular season. So should be really good. As we record this here, Alabama has taken it to Texas at halftime. So one would think these teams will cruise right on through and get to Saturday still. They're obviously still going to be at number 1, number 2, regardless. They could have both lost because that's how the poll works. But no asterisks for these teams going into Saturday. Auburn takes care of Vanderbilt, though, tonight on Tuesday night, 80-68. Good win for the Tigers. 6th road win. That ties a program record for most SEC road wins in a season. And so we'll see if they can set a new one with their next road game against Alabama. For Jason Caldwell, I'm Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the Postgame Pod. We'll talk to you all again soon.